somewhere. I must be doing something. It's a great honor to be here. I think I did come last year, but my session was in the next day. And I wanted to give some gyan also. I think there is some slide which people will put it. See, one of the things which we talk, I think the minister was also talking about it. What happens is that I think we call it CSR 1.0, CSR 2.0, and I'll also talk about CSR 4.0. The reason I think we also have to look at when the corporates are investing, I think it's a very valuable point that UP is missed out. I think that's the most important thing. I always say it, UP is India, India is UP. If you do not invest in UP, we cannot grow as a country. That's very important. I think that's the most important lesson we take it from the minister's speech. In fact, we also had, I was there in the secondary education for some time. We were able to bring, converge our policies to, include CSR budgets. In fact, if you are interested in, putting the schools, in fact, we have a portal called Kaya Kalp from the Government of UP, you can invest in them. And the reason why I call it CSR 1.0, I think Swati was making this point, I think, when we, and also Mahendraji. It was more profit, right? When you were making profit, it looks like you are making a pap, I think. And then you wanted to do a prayachit, atonement. And then you started telling, okay, we will do a 2% thing. It's more like the tax you pay, right? The religious tax, I think you must have, if you have studied the evolution of religion, you pay a tax. I think the older religions have it. It was more of that. I think we should move from that, the mentality. I think it has moved on. But still some of the people who are there in the corporate sector are looking at that point as more of an atonement of what they have done. And that's what, when you move from, the reason being why CSR 1.0 failed is this, because I think Bhaskar sir would be there to educate you more on this one. I think Sood sir also would be there to tell you why it didn't happen. The very reason it failed was that we were only networking in the first phase, like the way the Web 1.0 was doing. And the second point is that the entire design, I think we were not able to put CSR a part of a design. You look at the hotel where you're staying today, they have introduced the bottles, water bottles, right? It's a part of the design. I think that's how you start, your business practices. I think that's one of the reasons we call CSR 2.0 as the corporate sustainability and responsibility. I think we are moving from corporate sustainability and responsibility. We also are looking at why the sustainability practices have not been included. He was also talking about climate action, right? I'm also the relief commissioner for UP. Suddenly you see a lot of disaster happening around you. We are also the state country which is moving very fast in the technological advancements. We also have people who are dying in lightning. Why is it happening? How many of us have invested on early warning systems? How many of us have invested in disaster reduction, the risk reduction, a DRR? So we should, I think this is something which when you grow among communities, it's also your community where you do business with. I think some corporates have already started doing, ITCs for example has started doing it. Gap, I think that's one of the biggest example where you look at they do an end-to-end supply. In fact, Isabel was talking about supply chains. So that is where we move to 4.0. I would call it corporate, the corporate sustainability and resilience. I think that's the word which we look at. We should be looking at creating resilient systems. Can we create resilient systems across the forum by making it, I keep reading this word again and again when you read about CSR 4.0, it talks about deeply transformed societies. It's not just about putting, the values, the superficial values. It's not just the values you put in. It should be, the values should be deeply transformed, whatever you do. I think that's something which I have to capture. I think the Indians corporate scene has to capture this particular thing. It's not that we started on an educative mode or we do some bit of atonement. We should be able to involve stakeholders. I think this is one of those, I really like this slide for one reason is that it could tell you everything in one go. I think the circular economy, I think Isabel had mentioned it when she was talking about it. Can we create zero waste societies? That is very important. We create something. I think she was also talking about durable, sustainable bicycles when they introduced the bicycles in the society. So this is something which we look at. Can we take back what we are giving back? So that is something which we have to look at. We have to create systems to, to reduce waste. I think that's one of those important factors which we would be looking at. The one is identification. I would call it this way. When you talk about inclusivity, we go to a separate, I think this was happened to me when I was district collector in many places, and then we started doing it, some of those projects. We would do a 10% to 20% people who are capable of doing certain things, right? We try to, add value to it. But we do not make it more inclusive. I think that's one of these questions which we should look at. We should make it more inclusive, where the values, I think the values we are trying to put in should be able to reach out to the last person. I think that last person would be the man or woman who is there in the system. I think these are the people who are left out. We cannot rise as a country, as a community, as a society without these people involved in our transactional, everyday business transactions. And even your environmental thing which we are talking about, it's not just the elite who should be doing it. The practices like agriculture practices should have it. So these are the questions we should think of. I think most of you are doing it. I also read about why this has not happened. What we call the CXOs suite or what C-level suite and the ground level, it doesn't meet in the CSR space. I think that's something which we should be looking at. And also we should be able to publish reports. I think this is one of those things we do not know. I think data-driven governments and data-driven governance is the future. We need to invest in data-driven talks. I think that's one of the most things. I think the very reason that report was published. One of these bad things or one of the negative things which would be in the data is that we publish a lot of report which is more of a data only, not of information. See, when you look at the information theory, data, information, knowledge and wisdoms, what is that wisdom which comes out of this data analysis which you have done? So I think it has happened. I think there are few experiments which are happening across the world, how data is presented in an interactable form. In fact, I think he was talking yesterday when he was making his presentation, he was also talking about Impact Studio. Why can't we, put an Impact Studio of what we have done? How is that able to, bring, in fact, one of the other questions, why is government not able to deliver on many things? We would not be reinventing the wheels, right? So the last conversation which we did in the last thing is, the government needs people to innovate. We need to show that there are innovations which could be happening on the ground. And if these innovations could succeed, we will be able to replicate, because the government budgets are limited. We cannot be spending so much of money on it. The same question comes to you also. Why are you reinventing things which others have done it? So why can't you collaborate yourself? Why can't you converge on it? And if you look at the Bill Gates Foundation, things like that, they have been bringing other societies to bring in. So I think there is a longer, I think that when you talk about deeply transformed thing, and one of the most important thing which happens in 4.0 is the inclusiveness of technology. I'm a very strong vocal person for technology. I think that's something which each one of us should embrace. I think if you can embrace technology in whatever you're doing, you're recording them, putting the data upfront, making it inclusive, this would help us growing very well. I think that's one thing which we should invest constantly, putting technology as a forefront of whatever you do. You put technology in the front, you would be able to enable. I think that's one of the things which you will easily be able to do it. The other would be to scale. I think that's the factor which we are not able to do it. We do projects at smaller level, we are not able to scale it. Look at the Vodafone's M-Pisa. We are able to scale it. UPI. The kind of the transformation which the country has gone through to UPI is enormous. Can we not use such technologies to bring back the society and make it more inclusive? That's one of the questions which we should ask ourselves at the end of this 2 days conclave. So with these words, I think we have spoken most of it. I think that shared thing which I was talking about is, we should be, I think, this is a smaller platform. I think we should build this platform even more stronger. I think when I come back to the same platform after 5 years, there should be 5 or 10 foundations coming together and saying, we did this at every level. That is our clear success. I think that's one of the most important things. We need scale and we also need replication. For scale and replication, you need to talk to each other. I think that's more important. Creating systems. What happens in the CSR thing is you have goals. In fact, if you have been a student of strategy, you'll also think that goals is not the only purpose of reaching out things. You have a set of ambitions. You'll reach out to a set of ambitions when you have a proper strategy done. To reach out to this ambition, you need a lot of interaction with yourself. You look at your own purposes, what you look at. And purpose is very important for whatever you're doing. I think that's the key for what you're demonstrating. It's not about putting that 2%, 3% of your budget, getting it done. You should look at the scale of what we are looking at. Purpose on scale, I think that's the conclusive remark. We should do the CSR initiatives with purpose on scale. I think that's the bigger agenda, and I would congratulate you. And we should join. I think we are open for from the UP government, and we are happy to work with DRR, and we are also happy to work with other ideas whichever you think. Thank you all. Thank you, Bhumik.